Bang, right on time. Right on time. Get it up, East. Any second here. Let's see. Is the lighting okay? Is everybody comfortable? Everybody happy? You know, if you're here expecting me to speak about what you want me to speak about, or you're not happy with the lighting, or some other fucking delusional expectation, then I suggest that you fuck right off immediately. Too strong? That's what an introduction. That's far too strong. What an introduction. What a way to speak to people. I'm not a politician. I'm not a public representative. I can say what the fuck I like. If you don't like it, run away. Who's the moron? I seen it in the chat just as I was firing up there. I don't know why flat earthers don't just buy a Virgin Galactic ticket. I don't know why you deny unicorns. My unicorn agency is going to be travelling to Unicornia in 40 years' time. You fucking reality denier. So get your ticket bought, Mr. Unicorn Denier. Because in 40 years' time, I guarantee you, I'm going to take you to Unicornia on my special ship. So, get your fucking hand in your pocket and pay up. Thank you. Can't believe these wallopers are still running about Tinterwebs and YouTubes and whatever other social media, desperately trying to cling to the concept known as Globetardia. Because I'm afraid we don't live on a mathematical concept. We live in reality. Objective reality, which I'm going to start off with in a wee second. So I hope that intro wasn't too strong. Hope your fuses are no hurted, the lighting's shite, I've no shaved, I'm smoking, I'm drinking tea, I've got the guitar, got satanic tattoos, skin heat. I mean, it's just no pleasing you. Everybody knows that's what I'm about. I'm here to fucking please. So, I will try my fucking damnedest. Seriously though, you're Unicornia. Is there anybody interested? Was it Coombs or something your name is? Tom Coombs? You can literally buy it yourself, or if you're poor, you can literally watch your launch. There is nothing stopping you from viewing experiences apart from your stubbornness. I don't know why you're waiting on fireworks going up into the sky, Tom. It's been established for a long time. The geometry of the Earth. It's a plane. That's your experience of it. That's what it measures as. That's the geometry, Earth measurement, that we apply in practical, everyday living. It's a plane. It's high bits and there's low bits. It's all on the level. And we know it's high and we know it's low, denoted by the level. No, that wasn't an Adolf Hitler gesture or, some flat earth cult thing or anything, right? Calm yourselves down. I'm just saying that. I know I keep doing it. I know if I start doing that, videos will be made. Look at them. Look at them. These snowflakes along any minute to shut me down. I don't know. If there is any Masons out there that watch this or anything, give us a shout. I want to join. I'm sick of fucking civvy life. I'm sick of the morons. Right? And people are that bewildered. I was listening to the radio the other day, there's actually people that are that conspiratorial that they deny smudges. Couldn't believe it. I was hearing on the radio. It's a whole song dedicated to it. The smudge is true. The smudge is true. Must be people that deny smudges. You know? mean, surely Globetardia could go and save these people that deny smudges are true. I mean, that's baffling. I don't get that. The smudge is true. Of course it is. It's not a conspiracy theory. Smudges exist. Anyhow. Where was I? Right. Where are we all? Sing a song there, I just did. The smudge is true. I think it's a band called Spandau Ballet or something. That's what I'm singing about. Smudge is true. The smudge is true. I know this smudge is true. Fuck. Type into Google, smudge deniers. They must be out there somewhere. Right. I'm not a flat earther, you're just an honest inquirer. I'm not a flat earther either. I'm a realist. I'm no some propaganda strawman label. Right? Fucking pizza dishes and ice walls and all that rubbish. Domes and all sorts of gibberish. Just a realist. I was born into a cult. The cult told me where I lived. The cult told me what was expected of me. The cult told me who I was. Yada yada. And all that fell apart until I'm at the point of nobody knows. Nobody knows exactly where we are, why we're here, how it came to be. Not a fucking soul. Not that I know anyway. Maybe there is some somewhere that know the entirety of our existence. But in our circles, nobody knows. So, please do not assume you know what people like myself are about. So I've stated so many times before, and I don't feel the need to continually go over big introductions of it. If you want to have a discussion with me, I'm more than happy to have that discussion with you. As I say, the cult, the claim I was born into was that I lived on the exterior of a mathematical concept known as an oblate spheroid, zipping through a vacuum, 4 different directions at varying speeds. That is total and utter rubbish. And I can take you through it. I can take you through your reasoning processes and why you have beliefs in a concept and why they are absurd. Well, reality stares you right in the face. Right, let's get on about this, shall we? Right, where am I going to start? Why is that title? Oh, objective and subjective. Right, we'll start with that because that was a comment that I'd seen when I switched YouTube on the other day and it was the top of the wee bell. So I thought I would have a wee look at that and just clarify a couple of things. So hello everybody. Now I'm just going to start with this. This was a person called Jesus the God Man. I watched a video with you the other day doing FE activist work on the street. See again, this FE activist work, you know, whatever. Right. You mentioned that you think beliefs are pointless and that you don't believe anything. I just want to clarify what you mean by that because I think it's impossible to not have beliefs and that beliefs are necessary. If you're talking about blind faith, I would agree with you, but many people have beliefs based on evidence. For example, I believe there is a creator, God, but I don't believe that blindly. There is a lot of evidence of our creation being designed, but that's deductive reasoning. For me, it's not about having a belief. Again, you know, in a situation like that, I don't require any belief. I can assess reality. I can, you know, look at, you know, other people's reasoning. I can go through my own reasoning, and I can reason myself to the point of course, complexity, information, you know, the complexity of life. To take it, you know, as an assumption that it can come from nowhere, all by itself, no rhyme or reason to it, is absurd. So subjectively, you know, I can deduce that, you know, that is the probability that, you know, it's a design, it's an intention, you know, but where I draw the line again is where people, you know, take that into the realms of metaphysics. You know, that's your subjective interpretation and workings. Again, you know, that is subjective, which will bring me on to the other point, you know, about objective. There's a lot of evidence for a creation being designed, but not absolute proof. The evidence can be interpreted to conclude a creator is the best explanation. You know, again, a best explanation, you know, these wordings is for somebody who wants to convince other people. You know, I don't need the best explanation. I don't have to be influenced by somebody else's explanation of their subjective interpretation of what they think they're experiencing in regards to reality. Right? I can arrive at these things on my own, and so can you. There is no requirement for you to come to any conclusion about metaphysical aspects of our existence, unseen realms and unseen worlds. Absolutely none whatsoever. No requirement. That still requires a degree of faith. It's just a reasonable faith that's grounded, just like you would have to believe creation is just a cosmic accident if you were to claim there's no creator. Both require belief. But one belief is more logical than the other. See, I'm just going to stop it here, and this is where the problem is, because they're talking to me about, you know, when I'm saying I do not require belief. We are within what we call reality, right? Now, we are subject to the laws of reality. There is an objective reality. Now, that objective reality doesn't require my belief in it. I can demonstrate this so simply, and I don't know why people can't fathom it themselves. A newborn child, just born, has no conception of the world, doesn't know what a belief system is, doesn't have any perceptions of what is actually happening around it. It goes into a car, the car is impacted by a 12-ton truck, the parents and the child are obliterated, death, right? We exist within a realm of cause and effect. That is no subject to our interpretations, our biases, wishes, wants, desires, any of these things. This is all philosophical jargon, right? Because what people are trying to do is reduce reality to what is encompassing it, what gave rise to it, what surrounds it, what moves through it, the God, the invisible, the metaphysical, whatever it may be. That's why you have all these religions and spiritualities and philosophies and yada yada yada. And if you partake in applying any of these systems of philosophy, belief, and instill it in you and attach to it, you are adopting a belief system. Probably to your detriment. There's no requirement for you to ever partake in any of that. But the fact still remains, you are within the effects. You are within the objective reality. Objects, stuff, substance, cause and effect. If I scalp you over the head with a fucking 20, ounce mallet, your skull will cave in. If I throw you into a burning fire, you will burn. That's what I'm talking about. That does not require anybody's belief. You have to assume the objective world is real, unless there is evidence to show otherwise. Well, we are part of it. It is real, for reasons that I've just given you. Again, this is where it branches into metaphysical, philosophical, mental gymnastics. Oh, it's some fundamental root, it's not really real. Well, I've said it, it's a construct. So it's a construct within the real reality, whatever it may be. But it still doesn't change the facts. There's a cause and effect relationship in here. That's no subject to interpretation, desires, wishes, beliefs. Any of that stuff. Speeding train at 200 miles an hour will impact you to the point of turning you into mince. I don't need any experiments to prove it. You don't need them either. You know that. Even the idea that objective world is real is a belief, because there's no way of scientifically proving that. again, scientifically proving it. Go and stand in front of a bus. Lie under a bus. My hypothesis is that your side will split open and your guts will spill all over the fucking street. Because there is an objective reality. It's not based on belief or any of these things. In philosophy, that belief, the belief that objective world is real, is called a properly basic belief. It's not a belief. Again, belief does not come into it. It's just a fact that there is a world of other objects that will impact you, cause effect. Epistemologically, we cannot be devoid of belief because we have finite minds and cannot know anything with certainty. I know for certain if you breathe in water, you're going to drown. So this is where I think people intermingle their philosophical, metaphysical, meanderings and try and somehow sew it to the objective reality. So that it all reduces down to some wispy, ghostly fucking non-material fucking fluffy stuffs. Maybe the case, but we're not at that level. We exist in the level of cause and effect. Again, does not require any beliefs whatsoever. So, I really don't understand why people have difficulty with that. Again, I think it's because they lend their attention to the wrong things. They don't think properly through their own reasoning, and they're influenced by external sources that they lend their attention to. And maybe because they've got a bias, some wish for some wispy, spiritual, ghostly type thing, I don't know. There may be a realm like that, but as I say, we're here within this. It's just like when you play a video game and you crash your car off the barrier, it bumps off it. Now we know that's just digits and stuff, but if you were in there would be a cause and effect relationship. And then you'd be in there trying to philosophically perform mental gymnastics to imagine what gives rise to it and what's outside it and all that stuff. So, I think, there has to be a real distinction between objective and subjective. Again, I was talking to Dan the other day, and somebody brought up what the grass is green and blah, blah. And people intermingle subjective interpretations with fact. It doesn't matter about what your subjective interpretation or experience or relationship is with something like grass. The fact of the matter is that there is a substance there. There is a physical substance. And that's the realm that I'm at. And what happens with the globular earth model, interpretations can fall into sophistry, where interpretations can be fudged, to fit an already preconceived bias that they set out with before they started investigating, exploring the objective reality. So I hope that's clear. Again, it's a separate discussion. I'm not going to allow, subjectivity to enter into the realms of objective inquiry. Same thing stands. It doesn't require a belief. If you're making a statement or a claim about the objective arena reality, you are duty bound by my standard to produce practical reference to demonstrate what it is you're claiming. If you don't, you'll end up like Tom Coombs, believing in 30 years' time he's going to go to a reference frame that doesn't exist because somebody told him. And he has a religious bias, a worldview bias belief that he wants to be true. So he places faith in it and ignores actual reality staring him in the face. You'll end up like that. How is ID objective? I never said it was. It says subjectively, deductively reasoning through my subjective interpretation of what I think may be at the root of all this. I would go that road. I would never assert it or claim it to be an objective truth, because we don't know. So nobody has the right. All these people that claim they know how the universe came to be, and 14.5 billion years ago, such and such, and all this rubbish that they come out with, it's just religious crap. You have to be suspicious of people who are claiming and professing real science exploration, while at the same time offering you up existential stories. Because that's no exploration. That's storytelling. Storytelling has agenda. There's an outcome they want to have. There's a seed that they want to be planting. We start telling you stories about that. Fuck off. Bolt. So, be very, very suspicious of people that start asserting and telling you that they know what gave rise to existence and what its intention was. Anywho, where else was I going? Hello everybody, I'll make a wee smoke and say hello, and then we'll move on to the next aspect of this thing. Because the existential narrative you form a whole, psychological mainframe of how that individual is going to pursue their life and how they're going to function and operate. Right? As I say, if you can obliterate those false perceptions, you'll start to have clarity. You're not going to have certainty in regards to the bigger picture of your existence, but you will have clarity. As I said before, science simply means to explore, that being what we call the natural, objective world. Again, it doesn't belong to anybody, nobody has ownership over it, and nobody is superior over anybody else in that regard. Because if you've got a practical, functioning mind, and there's some aspect of reality with practicality, you will have the ability to understand it and know it. When we do not have that bridge, the practical reference, we're into the realms of metaphysics, mental gymnastics, objects of thought, as Gav has put it. And that's of no use to an inquirer of objective reality. Right? Concepts and imagination and beliefs and stuff are good for artistic purposes, creativity, right? But no, when it comes to questioning the cold, hard, impersonal, unemotional reality. That's fine. I had a wee accident the other week. I was going to come on live on the Saturday. We had high winds and the fucking door swung open with the padlock and smashed the window. Again, weather talk, fucking raining constantly. Whoever you are, fuck off. Send a request, right? Like a mannered, respectful person, and tell me what you want. Don't just keep ringing me like some mad stalker. So we're clear, I think people misconstrue. Let's see what this weirdo wants. Yes. Hello? Hello? Bye. Right, I'll just shut Google down and I'll turn that down. Aye, so I just wanted to clarify that because I think people misunderstand. I don't know why people can't categorise the topics of conversations or their topic of interest. It's not a difficult thing to do. If we want to talk metaphysics, we can talk metaphysics. But metaphysics is a total separate entity. Okay? David Wood, you're stealing lines out of a still game. Right, so, talking about that, let's move on. Because I wanted to talk about, we spoke about belief. Obviously, we know that we don't require a belief. Quite simply, I don't know anybody that can refute that. Newborn minds don't have any perception or concept of the world they're living in. There will be a cause and effect, if, they encounter some aspect of this reality. So, that puts that to bed, hopefully. Again, I'll be opening up once I get through some of this. So you can send me an email if you want to join me. If you get something to say. It's no Nathan Oakley's and Quantum Erasers argument. It's been pointed out by several people many, many times. These are just people that are trying to have ownership on it, to give the onlooker the illusion that they're champions of some war or battle, some dichotomy that's going on, so that they can say, super chat me and share my videos, like, subscribe and give me more money. Anybody that knows me, it's been pointed out. I've done it with Marty a few times. We showed you examples of the sun setting. The sphere Earth is a fixed geometry. That's a physicality, which means when they say the horizon's there it must remain. So people think the sun goes down like that, 3 miles away from them. Alright, well there's a horizon that's fixed with the sun half obscured by the curve of the Earth. Let's elevate up and look down this curve and look at the sun down there while we look down the slope. If you want to be a sycophant for they peoples, go away and be sycophants for them. It's not going to work here. People that have been here far too long. We see through all these creepy weirdos. The fact that they allow it to be championed as if it's theirs, again, tells you a story. The truth, reality, does not belong to any of these people. They're no champions of anything. Reality is there for you to discover it and experience it for yourself. You don't need to super chat and fucking give people money to represent your discernment. There's wee Granny Ann. I hope you're planting the potatoes and tomatoes and all that, doing your wee knitting. Yeah? You'll be on here soon like that, pushing your specs up, looking through the top of the specs, doing your knitting. No, of course the truth doesn't need belief. Get Scotland out of the UK, fucking right, I'm getting sick of it. I want to start, we need exploration, but for the meantime, let's start harassing. Never mind all this Brexit shite, I can't be bothered with politics, I don't even understand it. Just a bunch of fucking nosy bastards, sticking their neb into everybody else's fucking business, and one part try to rule another part, and all this fucking stuff. It's just mental illness. as far as I'm concerned. Let's get to the real stuff. Let's harass the bastards to start utilising the patented weather modification technology and get this miserable shite to fuck. As I said, I've been documenting it one day since the start of January that I've got up in the morning and went to my bed without any rain. One fucking day. Then, you know, we get this shit. I don't know what they're up to. It's like they're trying to, I don't know, you know, give people this false perception. It's on the radio this morning. You know, when I'm out in the car, it comes to the hour and they've got the wee news part. Oh yes, and mass floodings and blah blah. And you know, it's not good news. You know, here's such and such from the Met Office, the weather expert. And this is this fucking cocksniffer's opening gambit. Oh yes, from Monday it's from some interesting weather. I'm like, oh fuck, ears propped up. Oh, what's this? Turn it up. Some interesting weather as of Monday. The prick says, oh yes, there's more wind, rain and snow on its way. And I'm like, that's no fucking interesting. That's just every fucking day. They're saying it as if, oh, it's an event that's totally contrary to what we're experiencing every bastard minute, every fucking day. So they're trying to give people this illusion, like, oh, it's like a new event. It's just happening every fucking day. It's pissing. Where's it all coming from? Where is all this ungodly amount of water coming from? Don't get me started on the fucking weather. It's climate change. All these holiday destinations don't seem to be affected by this fucking pishy, shitey weather. It's like we just don't get any of the good stuff. We don't get the sun and we don't get the snow. So we've got this flip-flop that's happening. Comes to around about November, temperatures start going down, we get a frosty morning and it's icy. Right, and it's icy all through the day, then the sun fucks off. And then lo and behold, somehow through the night, it miraculously heats up to about 10 degrees and pishes down for 4 weeks. Same going into spring. Gets to the end of March, going into April. Oh, fucking tops off. Man tits out. Yes, feeling good, feeling good. Couple of weeks later, temperature down. Pissing down all the time. Gets to June, I'm putting the fucking wood burner on. In June. Climate change. How about Spain, Tenerife and all these holiday destinations where people go and spend all their spondulics? They don't seem to be getting affected. Anyhow, I don't want to digress into weather ranting because I could rant about the weather until I die. But I'm fucking sick here. This fucking fruitcake constantly ringing my phone. Right, so human perceptions. Let me just see here. Shut up. Right. So I'm back at this again, you know, understanding human perception by human man-made illusions. This is a wee article that I was reading on from Frontiers Sensory Neuroscience. Frontiers in Human Neuroscience. So they're talking about, you know, perception, you know, being, you know, flawed, you know. What do you want?
Hi, it's John Marek from the wonderful. Sorry, what did you say?
Palace Push. Boring. Right, that's enough of that. So, right. They're talking about illusions and sensory perceptions being illusory and how we can be succumb to illusions. But what I want to point out again is this aspect of the two geometries at play. So we've pointed it out on this channel so many times when we're talking about purely visible phenomena and the geometry that we have to look at in regards to vision. So I'll read through this wee article here and highlight some points in it. But again, just for anybody that doesn't understand this, the world that you live in, that we can measure and we can, construct in and we can, whatever else, that's has a tangible geometry to it, which is planar. Objects have volume, form, shape, whatever. And we can quantify these things as long as we can get to them in 3 dimensions. We can understand them and we can, utilise them to our benefit or whatever it may be. Now, running alongside that is the world that you look through here. Now, the world as it appears through here is not how the world actually is. So we have to have a separation because there is 2 geometries at play. There's a geometry of vision and there's a geometry of tangible 3 dimensions that you move in. So, an example that I use, all the time that you can test for yourself is, a train track or, a road with, lampposts on either side going away from you into the distance, and the parallel lines will appear to converge. Now, that's not a property of the 3-dimensional tangible world. That's a property of your vision, right? So when we're talking about purely visual perception, we have to, break down it and start to fully understand how we actually perceive the world visually, right? So I'm just going to read through this. It will not be that long. It may be fun to perceive illusions, but the understanding of how they work is even more stimulating and sustainable. They can tell us where the limits and capacity of a perceptual apparatus are found. They can specify how the constraints of perception are set. Furthermore, they let us analyse the cognitive sub-processes underlying our perception. Illusions in a scientific context are not mainly created to reveal the failures of a perception or the dysfunctions of our apparatus, but instead point to the specific power of human perception. But when they use this word perception, they're talking purely about vision, right? Because in some of these examples, as I say, they're utilising 2 aspects to create an illusion which can fool your visual perception. But isolating each aspect, we can understand it for what it is. Then we can build an understanding of why, we're perceiving it the way we perceive it. But they always, put this out there. Perception. Call it vision. Visual perception. Because that's where the problem lies. Rosa there. The main task of human perception is to amplify and strengthen sensory inputs to be able to perceive, orientate and act very quickly, specifically and efficiently. The present paper strengthens this line of argument strongly put forth by perceptual pioneer Richard L. Gregory, by discussing specific visual illusions and how they can help us to understand the magic of perception. When I get to the wee examples, I'll share the screen. Relationship between reality and object. Sensory perception is often the most striking proof of something factual. When we perceive something, we interpret it and take it as objective, real. Now, again, it kind of skirts over this. That has to be broken down. Because when we just perceive something visually, we can make all sorts of inferences and, apply beliefs and deductions about what it is we think we're seeing, right? But just by seeing something is not enough. And again, you build relationships. So that, in this it gives examples of how the mind or the eye, whatever they think it is that's going on, will fill in the gaps and blanks and present things to you in a way that, previous patterns of habit or experience. So, most obviously you can experience this with eyewitness testimonies. If an eyewitness has seen it with the naked eye, judges, jury members and attendees take the reports of these percepts not only as strong evidence but usually as fact. Again, when we're looking for objective inquiry, I seen something is not enough. Right, so again, they mix up the context here, the situation that they're applying this to. When we're talking about this, we're applying it to objective inquiry, So, oh look, I see something there in the distance, I reckon that's about 3 miles away, and I reckon that light's a 40-watt fucking pear bulb. How do you know? Oh, I seen it! But how do you know what you seen? Reasons. So, there's a huge difference. Despite the active and biasing processes on basis of perception and memory, indeed it seems that there is no better, no more proof of something being factual knowledge than having perceived it. So again, perceiving something, just seeing it, it's not enough. I can perceive the cup just by looking at it, but I can perceive the cup even more by being able to pick it up, move around it in 3 dimensions, get to every aspect of it, hit it, mess with it, break it, understand it more than seeing it in the distance and saying, oh, that's such and such, that's no good. The assumed link between perception and physical reality is particularly strong for the visual sense. Again, a blind person can't perceive anything visually, but a blind person can perceive the cup because he has other aspects, other sensory apparatus that he can utilise in order to understand what it is we're talking about, discussing. We scrutinise it only when sight conditions have been unfortunate, when people have had bad vision, or when we know that the eyewitness was under stress or was lacking in cognitive faculties, when people need even more proof of reality than via the naked eye. Right. But therein lies the problem, because just using the naked eye, unless you're making assumptions, it's of no use. Right? Particularly again when we apply it to intangible phenomena like lights in the sky. Intuitively try to touch the to-be analysed entity, if at all possible, in order to investigate it haptically. I've experienced that word, but I would say that's practically. Probably something along the similar line. Feeling something by touch seems to be the ultimate perceptual experience in order for humans to speak of physical proof. Again, pointing to what I've always been stating, and just as I've stated a minute ago, we can't just say, I see something, and by my vision, I can tell you what's going on, right? We can analyse the quality of our perceptual experiences by standard methodological criteria. By doing so, we can regularly find out that our perception is indeed mostly very reliable and also objective. Gregory and Gombrich, 1973. But only if we employ standard definitions of objective as being consensual among different beholders. There again lies the problem. Because if somebody was to come to me with that and say they've seen something, therefore it's objectively true, I would say, no, it may be objectively true that you have seen something. But what's not objectively true is how you interpreted what it is you think you've seen. And if you're going to assert to me that just by seeing something visually, I'm going to have to then tear apart your reasoning to isolate the integers, the points that formulated your statement of understanding or knowing something based on your vision. So when globe believers or proponents run about shouting, proof sees, I see something, and then I ask them to account for the apparatus of the visible phenomena, and they ignore it or skirt over it or try and omit it somehow, then I have to be suspicious they're being disingenuous there. Because again, I agree here, being able to move around it in 3 dimensions to be able to physically grasp it is when you have proof of something. Still, even by meeting these methodological criteria, we cannot give something in evidence about physical reality. It seems that knowledge about the physical properties of objects cannot be gained by perception, vision, purely on vision. So perception is neither veridical nor valid in the strict sense of the words. The properties of the thing in itself remain indeterminate in any empirical sense. That's in regards, I'll assume that's what they're talking about, when it's only a visible phenomena. We reliably and objectively might perceive the sun going up in the morning and down in the evening. The physical relations are definitely different, as we have known at least since Nicholas Copernicus' proposed heliocentrism. So we might perceive the sun going up in the morning and going down. Perceive, see, you think you know what you're seeing. You've been told what you're seeing. That's hugely different to what you're actually seeing. It might also be common sense that the Earth is a spheroid for most people. Still, the majority of people have neither perceived the Earth as spherical nor represented it like that. One reason for this is that in everyday life context, the illusion of a plane works perfectly well to guide us in the planning and execution of our actions. So here you can see the sophistry in this wee article. So let's read that again. Still, the majority of people have neither perceived the Earth as spherical nor represented it like that. One reason for this is that in everyday life context, the illusion of a plane works perfectly well. So in this article, it's saying that it understands that nobody's ever perceived the Earth as a sphere, because you don't. Your perception of your everyday existence is that you're on a level. Now this brings me back to the point of the globe cult. That's where I start. That's where everybody needs to start. Because the contrary, grandiose claim is that it's curving away from you, your feet in every direction, 360 degrees. That is a grandiose, astounding, absurd claim. And then again it says there that in everyday context, the illusion of a plane works perfectly well. So what it's saying by illusion of a plane means that it seems to be a plane. We've, mathematically, Euclid and many people before and after made the assumption of that, and we utilise planar geometry. So, Euclidean. So, here again is the problem. That's your everyday experience of just your perception in every day-to-day life. Then if you're applying some axiomatic mathematical, propositions to construction or whatever it may be, it's assumed that you're starting from the level. No deviation in elevation from the starting point to any other point. Okay, no deviation in elevation. Again, for people that don't know, the globe tries to redefine level as, equal distance from the centre of a circle drawn on a piece of paper to the outer circumference of the circle drawn on a piece of paper. And that means you're level. But in the real world context, level means no deviation in elevation. Now a curve, denotes that there is a deviation in elevation, because if I start here and I go a quarter of the way around the ball or the circle, I've now dropped in my elevation from my starting point. That's no level. That doesn't apply to everyday workings. Limitations of perception are even more far-reaching. A perception is not only limited when we do not have access to the thing in itself. It is very practically limited to the quality of processing and the general specifications of our perceptual system. So there it's talking about that. The limitations of perception are even more far-reaching. Our perception is not only limited when we do not have access to the thing in itself. So again, there's a circle up in the sky, there's a twinkly light and another big light that's a circle, therefore it's spheres and the Earth's a sphere. How do you know that if you've never been to them? Have you moved around them in 3 dimensions? No, you bloody well have not. So what's influencing your reasoning processes? I know, your education system, authority, telling you what these intangible phenomena actually are. And we men saying that they're going on a big firework and they've been to it. That's no objective scientific exploration and inquiry into your objective reality. That's a belief system, a religion, top-down tiering, where it's told down the layers, the information given to you about your reality and how you have to perceive your reality. For instance, our acoustic sense can only register and process a very narrow band of frequencies ranging from about 16 Hz to 20 Hz as a young adult. This band gets narrower and narrower with increasing age. Typically, infrasonic and ultrasonic bands are just not perceivable despite being essential for other species such as elephants and bats, respectively. The perception of the environment and consequently the perception and representation of the world as such is different for those species. Anyway, let me just find where I was. So we're into even if we have access to given information from the environmental world, it would be an illusion to think of objective perception of it. Vision again. Differences in perception across different individuals seems to be obvious. This is one reason for different persons having different tastes. But here they're mixing up, subjectivity. So when we talk about this is one reason for different persons having different tastes. So we've got an apple, and I bite the apple and I go, that's got that taste and that kind of flavour. And you bite the apple and you go, but that tastes like that to me and that reminds me of such and such and blah, blah, blah. Right? We've got one objective part of reality, and you've got two subjective entities partaking in it, right? And then saying, well, I like the taste, it was a bit zesty, and the other one saying, it was a bit bland, blah, blah, blah. The fact remains that there was an object, there was a three-dimensional, tangible object that's no subject to anybody's interpretation of it. There's definite form, definite geometry to it, volume, texture, density. So anyhow, I'm not going to digress too much into this. I was going to chat a wee bit more with Gav, but he doesn't seem to be about. So it goes in to show you illusory construction of the world, and this brought up a point for me, of the blind spot that they talk about in human vision and what that's about. So let me just see here. We'll come back to this at some point, but I just want to get where I was going with it. I'm not going to bother going through all of this. I had loads of stuff opened up here. But everybody can see, you can go and you can look at this, mind tricks, visual perception tricks, yada yada. What was this one? So, let me just share the screen with you here. In this wee video here,
will disappear, revealing the exact location. Seriously, but you can't see this dot. No, seriously, if you close your left eye, stare at this crosshair with your right eye, and slowly move your head towards or away from the screen, the dot will disappear, revealing the exact location of your blind spot. The cells at the back of your eye transform light into signals that are sent to your brain, but they are missing right here because this is where nerves and blood vessels...
So this is another aspect that opened up for me. When we're talking about vision, if this is to be the case, we've got light coming in and hitting the retina, blah blah in the back, but we have a blank spot here, but there's nothing for it to hit. So obviously there's going to be an issue here that, not to my knowledge, that anybody's covered on or had a look at, and how that plays a part in what it is we think we're seeing in reality, right? Because it's not a complete retina here. There's no a full screen of light hitting it, so we have a blank spot. Let me just see.
Your eyes help you see the world, but you can't see this dot for a similar reason. Go ahead and try is continuous instead of there being a hole in your vision. You also can't see all 12 of these black dots at once for a similar reason. Go ahead and try. Chances are you'll only see a fraction of them at once. The exact point your eye looks at is focused, but your peripheral vision isn't great, and so your brain often makes assumptions for what's there. Because of the consistent gray line pattern, your brain assumes the rest of the image is just like that and misses the black dots until you look directly at them. These two
So that's another aspect that we have to consider. You know, based on experiences, they talk about that the brain or the eye is filling in the blanks, you know, based on what you expect you should be seeing. So again, this is another aspect that humans have to have a look at, because your assumptions, your beliefs, your worldviews, you know, things you've been influenced and experienced before are playing a role on what you think you're seeing. Again, we're talking purely about the world of visible phenomena here.
rectangles are flashing out of phase with each other, right? How about now? For most, the rectangles will now seem to be flashing at the same.
See, and this is it, you know, again, when we add these things together, we can, you know, we can misunderstand or misinterpret what we think we're seeing, unless we can isolate each individual component, right, so that we can then have an understanding, which again brings me back to how we have to be able to access things in 3 dimensions. You know, if I was to show you that purely 2-dimensionally, you wouldn't really know what was going on or have an understanding, right? You would think that they were flashing at the same time or whatever this is offering you up here. But if you can actually get to these things, say they were 3-dimensional objects, you could isolate each part, each component of it, then you would have a knowing of what it is you thought you were perceiving visually.
Same time in phase, but they aren't at all. And yet, if we move these shapes beside them, just
So think about that in regards to looking up at the sky, to twinkling stars or these things that people think they're seeing, right? And trying to interpret what it is they think they're seeing. And again, unless you can get to it and isolate its individual components, whatever it is that makes it up, you will never have a proper, full understanding of what these things are. All you're going to get is human beings telling you fucking stories.
a few pixels, you'll begin to see them out of phase again. The surrounding area has a direct impact on how you see and perceive things, even if the result isn't correct. Not convinced? Look at these flashing squares. Except what you might not have seen is that the middle square isn't flashing at all.
And this again backs my point. If you can isolate the different factors, then you can have an understanding.
If we remove the outer square, we see it for what it is, a solid color. Now, try reading the sentence inside it. Did you catch the extra word? Your brain doesn't always notice mistakes like these because it doesn't affect your comprehension of the sentence, and your brain would prefer to act quickly rather than to be perfectly accurate.
Right, I'm not going to hammer on it. You know, I think I just wanted to make the point. Again, you know, purely vision, it's not enough. Again, for everyday understanding of 3-dimensional things that you've already experienced, of course, oh, there's a car coming towards me, I'll get out the road of that. That's based on physical, 3-dimensional understanding and interaction with 3-dimensional tangible objects of cause and effect relation, right? But when you don't have, you know, access to it in 3 dimensions, you're just havering, I'm afraid. Right, let me just see what I need here. So the blind spot as well is something of interest. Unlike your eyes, cameras have no blind spot, so they only need to have one lens. Right, hold on. Well, that was interesting as well, Rod Stewart. I heard that on the radio. I don't want to talk about it. I can tell by your eyes that you've probably been crying forever. And the stars in the sky don't mean nothing to you. They're a mirror. What's he talking about? Rod, what are you talking about, son? Who even wrote it? So I was looking at that, definitions of objective. You know, let me just see here. You know, it's funny, this use of language. Number relations again, which, you know, why we have to define the things that we're actually discussing with each other. So in this, what is this? Google objective definition of a person or their judgment, not influenced by personal feelings or opinions in considering and representing facts. Relating to or denoting a cause of nouns or pronouns serving as the object of transitive verb or a preposition. A thing aimed at or sought a goal, the objective case, and then we go to reality, meaning the state of things as they actually exist, as opposed to an idealistic or notional idea of them. So it's funny that, you know, because I say it continually, objective reality, you know, when I'm using objective before reality, whereas in these definitions I should just say reality. but we say objective reality because, you know, that was my understanding of the language and that's how I've been applying it. So again, it's just funny if we don't iron these things out with each other, we can be talking past each other and what it is we're actually trying to communicate. So anyway, let me see here. And that wee article, for anybody that wants to have a read at it, I'll put it in the chat box just now. As I say, I mean, it should be pretty obvious to people that unless you can isolate each fundamental part of what it is you think you're seeing, which means you need to have access to it in 3 dimensions, you can't really make statements about what you think's going on. You can say what you think's going on, but you can't affirm it to be reality. So you can see Hunter's examples, how your eyes can be deceived, optical illusions, blah, blah, blah. There's an endless amount out there for people to see that for themselves, so that you know that I'm not talking shite. I'm sure you've experienced it, you know. Again, there's a difference. It's like I've shown that before. You see these people, you know, you get the optical illusion of, it looks like staggered lines, you know, like they're running down in a slant, you know, and visually it can look like that to you and you can maybe be deceived by it. But where I can get out a measuring device like a ruler and I can go to the lines and I can measure the gappage of each, you know, horizontal section. And I can say, well, from that end and that end, it's both the same. It's the same, so therefore it's the eye that's perceiving what it is based on colour placement or whatever it may be. So, again, I'm not going to keep hammering it. Let's open up and have discussions about whatever you like. But if you're going to come in, you know, let's have a discussion. You know, that discussion means we conversate, you say something, we listen, we add to it, we contribute. I'm not interested in people who just want to proselytise and tell me about their gods and, you know, their imaginations of what they think's going on. You know, I'll still have a discussion with you about it, but just don't come in trying to assert it as a fact. Right, but have something that you want to discuss. I see I was going to get in about that a bit more detailed. I had arranged that we Gav, but he's obviously got something on. Right, Steve, you've messaged me. I'll check that out, Steve, later on. Oh, you're there now, Gav, you still let me know. Before I shut all that down. What's this? Hello?
Oh, you.
What? What is it with these people? They ring you up.
Okay, you are. Okay, good. So, Virgin Galactic, get a ticket.
Does your mouse do this? Unicornia, get a ticket. Right, hang on, I'm just going to send this to Gav quick. Fuck me, I'm sweating in here. I just can't seem to get the balance right with this fucking wood burner. Once Gav comes in, I'll shut that fucking hangouts down so this fucking desperate Annie can't annoy us. In fact, I can shut that down now because right, so we've got Billy Wilson and Dan. Right, I'll get to these once I get through this we have here.
All right, my man.
Gav, how you doing?
Nice sound.
I don't know if you sound. Right. How's it going?
Aye, all right. Can't complain. I'm a bit late. So.
Aye, no worries. I'd just kind of went through it quickly there because I didn't think you were showing up, so I didn't want to go on and on about it. I was just highlighting. I sent you the article to that wee paper. So
I read it.
I done whatever you want to add on. As I say, I've already kind of gave my spiel on it, you know.
There's quite a few things to point out about that whole article. Obviously, there's a lot of spin in it, right?
Yeah.
There would seem to be, sophistry involved in the way they're defining certain things, and if you don't, go along with their definition, then it all sometimes sounds plausible, but it's actually goes against common sense in a lot of places, Dale, and against direct realism, as far as I'm concerned.
I think it's the ambiguous use of the word perception, Gav, is mainly what I was picking up on. Rather than isolating the visual perception, they're just categorising it as perception, which can be touch, taste, hear, and obviously any one of these things we can get things wrong as well, but accumulated, we can formulate a better understanding or knowing of the thing that we're witnessing or experiencing. But for me, that's just what I was isolating there. The loose term perception when they're basically talking about vision.
Right. Yeah, most of the philosophical discussions, over the years, vision is always the thing that's picked out, and the differences in different philosophies, usually differ because of their view on vision, if you like. Yeah. So even in philosophical books, but as far as I'm concerned, the definitely mixing terms that you need to know to be able to understand. But there's a couple of examples I just wanted to bring in which tie into that. So do you know the famous one where Samuel Johnson kicks a stone and says, "I refute it thus," right? And it's a response to Berkeley's, theory of immaterialism, right? So just the mind, there's no body, so to speak, or no external world. And Jonathan Swift refused to open doors to Berkeley, right? Because Berkeley thought he could walk through them, right? Because there's nothing there, right? And Samuel Johnson kicked the stone and said, "I refute it thus," right? And there's now a new logical fallacy, I think it's pretty new, called appeal to the stone, right? And it's basically saying that this was a fallacy of Johnson. The appeal to the stone is where you dismiss something as absurd without having any proof for it, right? So, I would have said Samuel Johnson's quite right to kick the fucking stone, right? Because as a direct realist, that is an object in the external world in which we can all agree, and it doesn't care how much it hurt you when you kicked it, right? So, and you can see what I'm pointing out there is this, twisting of the language to make that appear to, don't trust your common senses, they're fallible, right? You've got problems with vision, so we're not allowed to trust them, but we can, because we need them in lived life all the time. So we can trust them, otherwise you'd be a dead man, right? But as you pointed out, it's the correlation of all these senses that does it. Yes, vision is 80% the most important one we need, so they reckon, right? In everyday life, but it's when we can see everything, touch everything, smell everything, taste everything, and then we know it's really is real. And until then, we don't. So
the kicking of the stone thing, again, I don't get, these great philosophers. I can highlight it simply with a newborn mind that has no perceptions of the world. It doesn't have any of these philosophical yarns and mental gymnastics going on or any of that fucking stuff. And there will be a cause and effect of physicality that's irrefutable. You know what I mean? So, all this, some of this philosophical stuff just gets into the realms of absurdity for me. Like, why are they even making it a thing? They're up here dancing with their mental gymnastics when reality's fucking simple. Newborn child has an accident, has an effect, dies. I mean, your philosophy's right out the window instantly.
Well, the philosophy always seems to just be rooted in sitting in your study and ruminating, thinking. having mental ideas, having objects of thought,
Mhm.
you know, and that's your kind of starting point.
Yeah.
And they forget the very fact that, you know, that mind is in a body, right?
Yeah.
In a physical world,
Yeah.
right? That doesn't change whether he thinks something or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And that's where all the philosophies seem to go wrong. They'll start from that ruminating ideas, notions, concepts, and stay in that little world.
Mhm.
And they like to forget that, you know, to do all that, to actually to be in that position, you need to have a constitution and a physical body,
Yeah.
right? with apparatus to have perceptions, to have experiences, right?
Yeah.
Within whatever environment you're in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, you know, when they talk about, we've talked about this before, like when you see a bent stick in water, right? Then, you know, you think, oh, look, my eyes are, you know, fallible, right?
Yeah.
They're showing me the defect in some way because, you know, I know a piece of wood is straight.
Yeah.
So my eyes are deceiving me. But they're not. You know, the real way to look at that is to say, my eyes are accurately telling me that there's a change in the state of matter. There's a fluid up there,
Yeah.
and there's air down here.
Yeah.
And that's why the stick is bent, right?
Yeah.
So my eyes are actually giving me all the information I need, Dale. It's just I'm thinking about it the wrong way
Well,
due to the education and shite you get told.
Well,
you know?
that's what I was showing there. You know, you have to be able to isolate each component so that you can formulate a proper understanding. So just seeing it and then somebody saying, as you say, oh, your eyes are flawed because blah, blah. No, well, you isolate the variables, the things that are in play, and then you understand what's actually happened. But if you just keep standing and looking at it and running your mind with mental gymnastics, you're going to come up with all sorts of fucking rubbish,
Yeah.
you know?
People are just going to implant stuff into your head,
Yeah.
you know? Right.
Exactly.
And you're just going to suck it all in at an early age, and then you're never going to have any real thoughts of your own. You're never going to be doing that, discerning the individual parts, the components that are making it up.
Yeah.
You know, look at the relations between the things, compare them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Because that seems to be a faculty that we all have. That's not something I need to learn, Dale. You know, you're kind of born with that, right?
Yeah.
You can see like two things, but you can always see more than that
Yeah.
if you're looking at two objects. So
Yeah.
if you know what I mean?
Right. And
If
even-
you look at an apple, you know, an object, then yeah, all apples are the same for everybody,
Yeah.
right?
yeah.
And that's objectively true, but you automatically start comparing them to other things. Like, so, well, that's not a cow, is it?
No.
Right? Certainly doesn't look like a. So that faculty is within you too to compare and relate.
Of
But
course.
I think it just gets numbed down because if people just get told things, then that doesn't. It's not activated, that discernment.
No.
You know what I mean?
No.
It doesn't keep
Which-
healthy.
Exactly, which brings you back to the child state again, you know, a developing mind, and, you know, it may see something, but instinctively its first reaction is to reach out, to touch it, to feel it, to see if it has substance, to see if it's actually something that's there. And that process should have continued, but as you say, you know, people are stunted because they enter into the, you know, the cult, and they're told these perceptions are formulated and relationships are made based on what they're being told. You know, rather than continuing that process of see, touch, taste, you know, practical, and then
Yeah.
you'll get an understanding, you know?
Yeah. And just to go back to the article, there was the one figure in there where there's a triangle, or a triangle, you know, that way and a triangle the other way,
Yeah, I'm going to show it.
and three circles on it, right?
Yeah,
And I pop it up on the screen maybe so
Aye,
that
aye.
people can relate to this better.
yeah, because this, you know, showing this, I seen it again today. I mean, people have seen this DPD, you know, delivery van that goes about, and it has a hexagon on it, but the way they've put, you know, a line, you know, a kind of line at 90 degrees to the vertical line, and then another line, your brain, you know, formulates a cube. But if you actually look at it and take out the lines, it's a hexagon you're seeing. You know, but it's just, again, this, you know, based on relationships and previous experience, you will interpret it as a square. Right, I'm just finding that. Hold on. There it's there.
Just on that point, Dale, you know, you can look at any corner of your room,
Yeah.
right? And even though you know that there's all 90-degree angles at that corner,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
To you, it looks like a Y,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly.
Look at it from nearly any angle, and it'll be some kind of funny-looking Y.
Yeah.
You know?
And you can invert it. You can deliberately, you know, attune yourself to see it inverted, like it's gone away for you, or you
Exactly,
can see
aye.
it coming in at you. So you can just apply your attention to fuck with your visual. So there's an example of this one that we've got on the screen right now.
Right.
You know.
So basically they're saying that our brains fill in that part. There isn't really a white triangle in the middle at all, is what they're saying, right? And that your mind's kind of through an acquired perception or knowledge or education, or by some maybe even a natural faculty of the mind or the eye that fills in, certain signal, or if it's noisy signal, it'll clean it, or it'll take a noisy, a clean signal and try and amplify it.
Yeah.
But they're basically saying that the white triangle is what's getting made in your eye and your mind, right? Now, in a way, I don't agree with that, because if you think about how would you construct this diagram, Dale, right?
Well, you isolate
if you've got a paint. Sorry?
No, sorry, I was just going to say, you isolate each part. This is one part, here's another part, there, and there. So they're separate sections, they're separate entities in their own. Sorry, I don't know if that's
if you think. I was just going to say, if you think about how you would construct this diagram, so if you've got a paint program in your computer, you draw the black triangle first, right? Then you draw 3 circles, and then you'd put a white triangle on top of it, and you get this picture fairly easily. If you tried to draw it on a bit of paper on a desk in front of you, right? Then you would probably draw the white triangle first, then the black triangle, and then draw semi-arcs with a compass round the vertices of the triangles, right? And then you'd rub out the line you started with the first triangle. You take a rubber to it, right? So when you think about the construction, fine well what that thing is, right? More than you do if it was just looking at it visually and thinking your senses are faulty,
Exactly.
That's interesting stuff, the way that whole works, and I think that's where a lot of the knowledge gets hidden, if you ask me, and the workings of the eye and the visible world, which should really be looked at mathematically and from a natural philosophy point of view, has wandered into a kind of psychology, neuroscience, brain, metaphysical, kind of science. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's where they're hiding and tell us stories.
Yeah, because as I say, if it's an object or it's part of reality, you can isolate it. Just even like in that wee diagram, you can look at it and see, I can see the white triangle. But if you put your attention to each section, you can see that they're separate entities to each other, and you can see that it's just a visual, illusion that you're perceiving in your mind's eye. It's not really there,
Yep. Yeah, but the one thing that we can all agree on is that we all have the same sense organs. Right? And I mean, there's some wonderful things apparently to the eye too. Some of the let's say records and reports on people really looking at vision and all kinds of things. Like, so people who have squint eyes, right? Or people who are hanging their head like this all the time, right? Then, apparently the eye can kind of adjust, right? And it doesn't really matter where the light's coming from, the retina will play its role. And, we talked a little bit about the optic nerve yesterday as well, right?
The blind spot.
And, the blind spot, sorry, yeah. And so there's apparently ways where the eye can adjust to its surroundings, right? To a certain respect, to maintain the level horizon. Because even squint people see level horizons, So, yeah, honest.
Right.
But the article certainly provoked quite a lot of thought.
Aye. But
and it's good to discern the bullshit in it.
Of course. Because if you're not discerning that, again, you can be influenced, because it constantly utilises the word perception. So people are just thinking of perception as a whole, when again, it's a bit disingenuous. It should be isolated as purely visible phenomena, and how we can be affected by that, and then laying it out. Well, if we can isolate the components, if it's a three-dimensional tangible object or sequence of a collection of objects, we can isolate each component, each part, and we know them for what they are, so that we then understand how it presents itself to us visually.
That's right.
So and showing.
We said this often.
No, you go.
Sorry, you go.
No, go for it.
I was going to say, we said this often enough that there's two different geometries at play here that people need to understand too, especially as it applies to the mathematics of measurement. right? Because within the mathematics of measurement, you also include geometric shapes, right?
Yeah.
So the way you would scale and multiply, triangles and stuff like that, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that all gets easily mixed.
Yeah.
Sorry, I forgot where I was going with that.
No, but even in that, people talk about how, a metric system's man-made, so blah, blah, blah. But, again, I was talking to Dan about this. If I've got the shelf up there and it's got like a rectangle, we can agree upon a measuring device. We can call it millimeters, or we can call it centimeters, whatever we like. As long as we agree on these integers of spacing, right, we can then utilise that as a measurement. Then I can apply that and I can go to one end of it. And I can say, okay, well, it fits within, 20 millimetres or 2 centimetres, whatever your preference is. And I can go along it incrementally to show that it is evenly spaced. So we can utilise a metric system, but it has to be based on tangible stuff. We can't just, base it on imagination. Thank you very much.
Visual stuff.
Thank you. Aye. So at one level we have to agree upon increments of measurement, but the increments of measurement have to be applicable to real world phenomena, something tangible,
That's right. And I just wanted to give you a wee example of that too. So I googled a wee dram.
Right.
What does a wee dram mean? Is that actually a measure? Right. And obviously there's one sentence or one opinion was that it's whatever you like to drink and your guys like to drink and the company you're in, and all very subjective and depends on a hell of a number of factors.
Yeah. What
really constitutes a wee dram.
Yeah.
But there's also a much nicer definition which says it's a mouthful small enough to swallow.
Right.
Right? Which everybody can relate to, right? It's a real volume of liquid that you can hold in your mouth and swallow in one gulp would be considered a wee dram, right? Then I find that is connected to the real physical world, right? That's what I would expect from a measurement, right? Mm-hmm. And not this hairy-fairy explanation that it could be anything, depends on so many things.
Aye, exactly.
So they like playing with words, but you need to get a measure of anything needs to be tied to a physical substance, right?
Yeah. And
a physical action, and we have to be involved in it.
Of course. Yeah. So
sorry, it was a wild noise.
No, no worries. So that was all just pointing towards again. We kind of just basically again the luminaries. We have people looking at it and interpreting it to fit models and presuppositions and assumptions being made and yada yada yada. But the question always comes, well, if you're no moving around it in 3 dimensions, you're no quantifying it properly, you don't actually know what you're looking at. And unless, you see people with their P900s, they'll look at a particular star and it's all this wavy, stuff that's going on. And as I showed a minute ago, it was showing, a sequence of 3 rectangles. And it looks as if they're flashing in unison or out of sync with each other when they're actually either flashing in unison or out of sync. But you would never know that unless you can isolate them. Because if you're just looking at it, visually, you can't tell what's going on. You have to be able to isolate each component at it so that you can understand what's actually happening. And the same applies to up there. If you're not getting to it, to isolate the different aspects of it, you don't know what you're looking at. Yeah?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And to say you don't know where exactly the overall visual perception is coming from. What parts of it is to do with the light, with the environment, or with the workings of the eyes and the rods and the cones, and the fact that the signal's getting cleaned up, or the fact that you've got that fovea centralis, which is right in the middle of your eye, and the fact that you've got the optic nerve, where there's a bit missing in the presentation screen, So you've got all these different aspects that could that have something to do with what an optical observation is, right? So you always need to be very, very careful when you use that as any kind of evidence, right?
And again, the globe proponent believer should be looking into these things, because that's all they ever offer is visible phenomena, and they never ever want to engage or even try and reverse engineer or understand the workings of the apparatus that they're using to claim a proof. Whereas people like us are willing to go there and have a look at it because we know that it plays a part. I mean, you can, as I said before, the perspective aspect of equidistant train tracks. We know engineering-wise that the gappage between them is the same consistently for the whole length of the track. but we look at it and it appears to converge. So it's a property of the eye. It has to be looked at. So that's not happening just on the horizontal. It's happening on the vertical as well. So it's got to be
on all
understood.
great circles, on all the great circles of the sphere that,
Exactly.
of which you are the centre
Exactly.
of your visual perception.
And as we've shown, that's basically what the globe is. It's a play on vision. So they've taken you and placed you on the outside of your vision rather than showing you that you're always at the centre. And their celestial sphere concepts are based on that principle.
Right, exactly. They'll take you on a trip around one of their great circles, Dale,
Yeah.
which, if you're looking at it directly, will appear to be a straight line.
Yeah.
And they'll distract you from the fact that you have to contort and bend your whole body to look round, to see the thing.
Mm-hmm.
You'll just think it's straight all the way. These cars that go around these walls. The walls of death and motorcycles and stuff.
Yeah.
Have you ever done that?
No.
No, I'd love to, but I don't think I trust myself anymore. But apparently it's just like travelling in a straight line once you're up there.
Yeah.
That's
That's
all
it.
you do. You're just going around in a great circle,
Yeah, exactly. Aye, so I didn't want to labour on it too much, but I just wanted to point that out, and make an example.
No,
out of
thanks
it.
for sending it.
No worries.
I think we probably saw a lot of the same things in that article. It's great once you discern the bullshit, then you can pick through these things easy.
Yeah, exactly. And that's
And I mean, all this philosophical stuff as well. There's a whole bunch of science educators in there too, the same way there is in the globe science, and you see all the same actors cropping up.
Yeah.
Bill Nye,
Yeah.
he's got the same, rhetoric as well, where he's talking about a hammer falling on his foot.
Yeah.
Tyson DeGrasse, and then you've got the serious side in academia, and for me it's a tag team deal.
Mm-hmm.
They send in the clowns, and then they've got these serious people, and it's a show, right?
Yeah.
I mean, they're at it together. People play the clown, and other ones,
Yeah.
play the serious. I'm the skeptic.
Yeah. And I think-
Whoa, and then, but they're just sneaky old salesmen as well.
Mhm.
So.
And all these, fearmongers that talk about Illuminati and the Freemasons and the yada yada, 33s, blah, blah, blah. Well, the main thing is this all the time. It's constant, this fucking shit with it's like a mockery. Because, again, for me, it's that they understand, more about your perception through vision than what people put attention to. And because you're ignorant and apathetic towards it, it's just been utilised to sell you nonsense that you're on the exterior of spheres and whatever else, and at the same time telling you not to trust them. You've just to listen to them and they'll present it to you through the screen,
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, that's one of the problems. I had a funny line today. Yeah, outrage died today, but don't worry, his little brother Apathy is alive and well. That is the problem, isn't it? People, acquiescing to the fact, right?
Mm-hmm.
The rest acquiesce, and then nothing ever happens.
Aye.
It's sad, isn't it?
Aye,
Because
and people even ridicule it. You're like, well, the apparatus that you're utilising to make your proofs, you're being asked questions about it and you'll just omit it and hand wave dismiss it and ridicule it as if, well, that doesn't help anybody. You've got to understand the geometry of the apparatus you're fucking using, how it actually functions. And if you're not willing to go there, then you're disingenuous. So you can't keep trying to present things as proofsies of your assertion, without a comprehensive layout of the apparatus, which again we've tried to focus on and continually bring it up.
Yeah.
So,
And there's just one last thing before I leave you, but there's one logical statement as well called solvitur ambulando,
right,
and it means to walk around and do experiments.
right.
Right? And that's what we should be getting back to. I mean, it's like the Aborigines, they would go walkabout to find out where they were, or maybe even to ease their mental,
Yeah,
thought processes as well. You say, I'll just go for a long walk to calm down. Do you know what I mean?
yeah,
And a part of that's just being able to go out and explore and switch the mind off and let the firmware, get the information about the environment without judging it,
exactly,
without looking at it critically,
Yeah.
So instead of just taking in what some cunt told you.
exactly.
Anyway,
And that's it. Once that perception's been warped, you've been told this stuff, you then walk about perceiving things based on the adoption of beliefs or the influence that you
Worse, you go about telling it to other people.
Exactly.
Believing it to be true.
Exactly. And ridiculing
Right,
people.
Aye, aye.
Yeah. So,
We need to stop it. Yeah, we need to just think about these things more carefully and have reasoned discussions with each other instead of having emotional, how should I say, illusions. Huh?
that's it. You perceive the world as an oblate spheroid. Yeah.
Oh, well, funny that. Yeah, you're inside of one. Yeah,
Exactly.
or you're looking through one. I mean, you know.
And this is the globe earth and the concave stuff. This is, it's just a mockery of that you're at the centre of your field of vision all the time. So it appears to you that you're, either on the inside of some sphere or standing on the outside of it, but.
Yep. And relativity and quantum mechanics is the same thing. It's all about, in relation to yourself, right? And how you quantify things, yeah? The mechanics, the motions of things, right? I mean, they're saying it in your face too,
Right.
Like the mathematical theories are making a mockery of what's really going on, and where we should all be rooted,
Right.
in a common understanding, in a common sense, right?
Right. It's total fucking nonsense. Miniature space balls. Spoke about that before. For me, it makes more sense that it's a lattice type structure. Reality shows me that everything's constructed in layers, and everything that's biological grows like that. It grows from a central point and builds layers outwards, So, all this rubbish about wee fucking imaginary space balls zipping around each other and fucking doing. I mean.
No, it's nonsense. It's just the level and the plumb, my man. And you prove that every day when you wake and stand up.
Exactly.
This should be obvious to anybody.
I need to shut
As you say, it's always these levels.
Yeah. Alright, so I'll go back to the emails. I think there's a couple of people requesting to join, so
Go for it. I'll kick off and then leave you to enjoy the rest of the night, man.
No
Great
worries.
chatting with you again.
cheers, mate.
See you soon, eh?
Shortly, cheers.
Bye.
Oh, I wasn't even sharing that, was I? Right. Look at this crackpot. This is globe cult fucking zealots for you. Hello. I mean, what the fuck? Morons. Right. Let's see here. Sending me gay porn pictures now. Brilliant. Right, so right, out FMCG. Alright there, my name is Andy. Nice one, Andy. I'll get back to you on that, mate. I'm no one for kind of crowded places like that, but I'll have a wee think about it. Cheers for the email. I'll send you one back, mate, once I'm away for this. Right, Billy Wilson, hello. I just tried to call you but couldn't reach me. I'm so sorry. I was just wondering if I could say something. Thanks in advance. But yeah, I think this might be a troll here, so we'll send the email and we'll see that this is Billy Wilson. And we've got Dan. You're online if you're up for it. Cheers, Dan. Right, we'll need to wait 5 minutes to see who this person is, Dan. Oh, you're there, Andy. Nice one. So you heard that. Cool. I'm Exactly, Pragmatic. You got to admit they got determination. At this stage, it's so embarrassing that censorship and spin doctoring are rife. Embarrassing. Fucking right it is. They're just a shambles, and there's this gay porn bomber constantly trying to phone me. Did I send that? I did send it. Yeah, I don't need to have that open just now anyway, so I can shut that. Hi Tanya, how are you? I'm alright. Hope you're well. Levi Foster, Tom Coombs, still hanging about trying to sell his tickets to Fantasy Realms. Tasty Wheat. One man, he's detector. Stephen Smith, the captain. Sick 2712. What else been happening in the chat box? Exactly, beyond belief. This clown's fucking sending me gay porn pictures and everything. Graphic gay porn pictures. At least we know what he's up to. Who was it that asked for that link? If you can hear that vibration, that's that fucking crackpot globe cult zealot. So Billy, I've sent you the hangout link. We'll get another couple of minutes and then I'll move on. For Dan that's asking Skype or Google, you need to have Google Hangouts installed. Hello.
So
that's crackpot again. What do you want?
So first, hang up on me.
I'll hang up on you whenever I like. Sack sniffer. You've got nothing to offer here.
Answer the fucking question. Answer, okay? What is stopping you?
Hey to you, sir.
What is stopping you? What? Hang on, wait.
Hello, Dan.
You did.
Why?
Give me your penis.
What is stopping?
Bunch of fucking 7-year-olds teetering and laughing because somebody says penis. High five, you said penis. Aren't we so edgy? So edgy. You went online and said penis. I don't know if you've been paying attention, but there's much better, slaggings than penis have came from here. Right, Dan. Set another one up. I'd have a wee bit more respect for them if they showed who they actually were, but they're 7-year-olds fucking sharing gay porn with each other and teetering and laughing because they say penis. That's the globe cult mentality for you. Special individuals. Is it any wonder when they have a fucking conceptual worldview of living on an absurdity? That's what you produce. That's the level of intelligence that you produce. It's amazing, isn't it? Cutting edge. We are at the cutting edge of human development. Penis. High five. Knock yourself out, lads. The Tom Coombs character in the chat box, that's who this is that's constantly trying to phone. So let's just deal with that fucking cretin right now. Tom Coombs should have vanished, yes, good stuff. So I'm waiting on Dan arriving. I did send it, I did. Need to run along and make another suck puppet. Right, so what else has been happening? What else could we talk about right now? So I think by this stage, you know, everybody knows the globe is utter cack. You know, as I say, I seen who was it again on here? They were there at the beginning, talking about the frustration of exploration, and you know, again, just to touch on it, I feel the same every single day. You know, that same frustration is there, but we need time. How you doing, Dan? Is it?
Hey Del, it's Dan here.
How you doing, mate?
Doing well, man. How are you doing?
I'm alright, bud. I'm alright.
Yeah, I've been watching your show this morning. Had some really good speakers, some good topics on.
Nice.
So you're talking about perception and how people perceive the world around them as they see it, and this is something that I've taken a really great interest in. I've been a flat earther since, well, 2015, I guess. You know, one thing that I've realized is that the light that comes into everybody's eyes is totally unique to each person. And, you know, I've seen in the comments, people are, you know, echoing the same thing. You know, we all walk around with our own personal atmospheric dome or bubble. And, you know, we can only see so far, you know, the converging of light, you know, it all comes to the horizon. So it's really interesting when you bring up this subject about the shape of the world, or how far people can see, and people like to believe that they can see forever, right? They think they have Superman eyes. And yet when you look at it objectively, the human eye cannot see that far, you know. So yeah, it's really interesting. And when you start looking at the world as it is, you realize that it can't be anything other than flat, right? I mean, we can't say we know exactly what it is, but we know what it's not. It's not a ball. We're not spinning. And when you start looking back on some of the ancient teachings, the Vedic scriptures, you know, they're all telling the same story. You know, they're all giving us the same information, albeit they do it in their own way, whether it's in different languages or whatever. But this whole made-up belief system of some atheistic worldview that we're just a speck of dust in ever-expanding universe, it's complete BS. Right? It's intended to create an emotional dysfunction within ourselves, disconnecting us from the source, disconnecting us from whatever you want to call it. You know, people call it God, but
I think first and foremost it disconnects you from your own source. You know, your own discernment, your own faculty. That's for me first and foremost, that it's disconnecting. It's a gaslighting technique, you know, for you to doubt your own sanity, doubt your own perception, doubt your own ability to reason and discern the world for yourself. You know, that the world appears to be this, but it's not really that. It's really this, and us special people are here to present it to you. So therefore, ignore, don't pay attention to your own experience of reality. We'll feed you the information that we think you require. You know, so even if you take it away from this whole notion that they're taking people away from God or a creator, they're taking you away from your own constitution, your own direct experience, and your own power, pretty much, because at the end of the day, that's where it lies with each individual.
Lost you there, Dale. Oh,
sorry.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see if it comes back. I've been disconnected again. Am I still here?
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Oh, you can hear me?
Yeah. Sorry about that. I don't know if it's my internet or what.
Aye. So I'm just saying, I hear that quite a lot. They're taking us away from God, the Creator, the blah blah blah. Well, I think people have to realise first and foremost they're taking you away from your own, discernment. Your own grounding, because that's what's important. You have to be grounded yourself properly and be reasoning with clear perceptions first and foremost. Before we even get to the philosophical metaphysics of what encompasses our existence, because for me I think that's a lost cause. As I keep saying, we're within the effect. Philosophically you can present a notion that reality is given rise by some metaphysical entity or essence or energy or whatever it may be, but the fact remains is that we're within it, we're part of the effects, and that's where our attention has to be right now, because that's where the problem is. We don't even know where we are. We're not grounded in a proper foundation of what reality is, its dimensions, its position, any of these things. So for me it's hugely important that we establish that before the metaphysical philosophizing.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely right, and we're taught to do this as soon as we basically come into this world. When we're in diapers, and we're taught to learn, how to walk and how to talk and how to think, and right from being a little child, we are instructed to push down our intuition. Our intuition, your gut feeling, that's your connection to the source right down here when it tells you something's right or something's wrong, whatever that may be, or something's true or something's not. And so we've been pushing down our intuition, that little child voice, that little voice down inside that's screaming up saying, hey,
Right.
And we're replacing it with ego.
Yeah.
And so humans want to believe that they are individually important, and that's your ego making you, puffed up and thinking, oh, I'm special, I'm special. We're all just the same thing. We're all literally just radio antennas walking around on this flat plane, and we're absorbing this information from the source into our, physical beings through our pineal gland. And you can tell when people are not connected, it's because they have big egos. They push down the intuition. They've rejected the spiritual realm. They've rejected the source. But
that's it for me. That thing that people talk about, the spiritual realm, the source. It's not something that comes by way of magic. I think there still has to be a process of how to discern, how to reason, how to process information. And just as you touched on there, I think as children we have this kind of natural constitution to be open, to be trusting, and to accept, and take on board what the adults, the peers around us are offering us. And I don't think I struggle with that. I think in an idealistic sense that's a great attribute to have, because it shows honesty, it shows openness. But where we're living right now and whatever's went on here, we're not in that situation. So we have to be very cautious. So it's not just about maintaining this clear perception so that transmissions can come in. We still have to understand how we decipher information. The tools have been robbed of, is that they've been taken away and they've been bastardized into sophistry, consensus, authority, and that's bombarding, people. And again, as a child, you're looking and going, well, that seems to be what everybody else is partaking in, so therefore I'm just going to go along to get along, but it doesn't make it right, but that just seems to be the natural play, the natural order of things. So I think for me it's, we have to really iron out a process of learning and how we can help youngsters to learn properly and not just adopt things on hearsay and believe what they're told, regardless of where it's coming,
Absolutely, yeah. We need to stop teaching our children to just repeat things that they're being told and instead go out and discern the world for themselves. That is science, right? Science is your objective reality that, you do observations, you do experiments that are repeatable, they're verifiable,
Yeah.
and you can prove them. Until if you're just living in a theoretical reality, it's just science fiction. You're just sitting there in your imagination. You have to be able to objectify things with observations that other people can repeat and come back with results that either prove or disprove what you're trying to observe.
Even at that, the difference between experiment and demonstration, just as you say, as children, your natural constitution is to go and play, to practically demonstrate things to yourself, and these are demonstrations of a substance and its behaviour and how it interacts with other substances and their behaviours, and these are demonstrations for you as the individual to formulate an understanding of reality. But again, there's a separation and a difference between that and what we term as a scientific experimentation, where you're trying to establish cause and effect relations. It's a separate thing, but just that natural process of demonstration is enough to formulate a practical understanding of reality. You don't need a PhD, you don't have to go to an education centre to formulate a process for that. Children are naturally inquirers. They ask the questions, they play practically with things, and they formulate an understanding. No language is required for that process at all,
No, it's totally true. And it's funny how, especially here in North America, I'm in Canada, and kids, ever since I was a kid and probably since my parents and before then, they were raised to believe in fairy tales, Santa Claus. And, it's a very simple, rudimentary, explanation. But, kids, around the age of, let's say 7, 8, definitely by the time they're 9 or 10, realize that their parents lied to them, right, their whole childhood. And a lot of them, end up going to school and they reject the faith in their parents because, all of a sudden their whole world has been turned upside down because their parents lied to them about Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and all these other things. So what do they turn to? They turn to, astronomy and science and science fiction, and it's so much cooler than what the Bible's telling us.
Well, that presents itself as objective, real, demonstrable reality. And again, as children, these lies, it's like they emotionalize and justify lying. Like it's part of our everyday experience, and it's okay to lie, and these are acceptable things within, society or relations with each other. And for me, they're clearly no. It doesn't matter how small the lie is. If you're emotionalising it and presenting it like it's okay for some irrational, weak, emotional reason, then that's just mental illness. We shouldn't be partaking in any of that whatsoever. There's no need for it, unless, of course, you're trying to set them up to have further lies and accept lies through their life. Like, that's what happens. Look at the whole structure of society. It's all based on ideas and concepts of how we should live and practices and behaviours, and they're just adopted like they're objective, and they're clearly no, because it's just man-made constructs.
Yeah. Anyways, so this is something that I've really taken an interest in ever since I became a flat earther, because I wasn't. I was completely on the other side of the spectrum. At one point, I wanted to become an astronaut. I wanted to become an Air Force pilot and fly up there and go explore new worlds, completely indoctrinated. And it wasn't until I really started to explore within myself and look into some of the older scriptures and teachings from thousands of years ago that still stand true today, that it really started to make sense that, this is a big deception. So one of the things that I've really taken an interest in is watching how people react to this type of information. When you meet somebody for the first time and you present them with this different model of the world, and when you can tell, you can see it in their eyes when they start to actually think about some of the points, some of the really simple points that disprove a globe spinning model. It's like a light goes off on top of their head, and it's interesting to watch the stages of their awakening, or how they will, a lot of times they'll cocoon and they'll go back into their model. They'll have denial, and then they'll have anger, and they'll try to fight you to the tooth and nail to stand up this model that they have no real knowledge about themselves. They don't know how fast they think their world is spinning. They just want to believe that they're in this safe little world that they've been told. And what's interesting is when you see the people that actually get it for the first time, you only have to ask them one or two particular questions that catch their curiosity, whether it's about the stars, the constellations, the sun, the moon, water being level, converging points, the optical resolution of the eye, angular resolution, whatever it is, you can sort of, hit a whole bunch of different topics, and then when you realize, okay, this one caught their interest, and you get them to really think about it and start asking questions. It's like the ultimate drug that people want more, and they just keep digging and digging. And anybody that looks into flat Earth and really looks into it, they become flat earthers, because there's no way out. And this is a common thing. Once you see it, you can't unsee it. And a lot of the time, when people see it, all they want to do is share it with everybody, because it is the most beautiful thing. It wakes you up. You feel alive every day. Every day you wake up, and you're like, this is created for us. It's not religious. It's all above that. This world is for our experience, and all this information that's coming into your eyes is for your eyes only. And how you react to that and how you live in the world, determines. Are you good, or are you bad? Are you bad? Are you going to do good things with that information? Are you going to make people feel good, or are you going to live in a world of fear and
I can understand, that position you're coming from, and like you're saying, it's here for us, but I think we have to be very careful with these types of assumptions, because again, clearly we don't really understand or know exactly where we are, how we got in this position, and I've got so many questions. So, when we generalise, like, oh, we're here in this finite area that you're imagining, and that it's here for us, and it's blah, blah, blah. Well, I've not established that yet, so I'm cautious of that. But I agree with you on the other points. It's fascinating to me, obviously, interacting with people, and that's why I went the route of, because so many people are influenced by this word science, and they think that they've got this weight of authority behind them for their belief structure that's science. So that's why it was important for me to needle into the avenue of, right, well, what is this definition of science? What are these subcategories? What are they actually talking about? So that when I have interactions with people, I can lay that out first and foremost with them. Well, let's talk science. What are you defining as science? How do you define it? And I can lead them to the realms of practicality, so that you can reason with them to that point of them accepting that that's the only method that there should be. Then you can then bring the points up with them about their belief of the heliocentric model, and show them clearly that it doesn't fall into that category of demonstration practicality, which is a useful tool. But it still fascinates me, as I say, when you go to the universities and you see these apparent, intellects, and they don't have the ability to reason with honesty. Because you can bring them a, first principle, you can have agreements with them, then you bring the points up and they start trying to backtrack. You see the psychological process of them trying to defend a faith-based belief that they've held to be true. So for me, that psychological aspect is a fascinating study of how human beings react. You're echoing exactly what I was saying.
Since becoming a flat earther, that's one of the things that I've really taken an interest in, is observing how people react to this information. And I actually work at a university. I'm not a teacher or anything like that. I work in IT, cybersecurity, but I work at a scientific university. And when I first became a flat earther, I was terrified. I was actually really afraid to come out. I'd already told my family and friends, and I lost a lot of friends. I guess they weren't really good friends, but a lot of people said, well, I'm not going to talk to this guy anymore. He's clearly insane. And I even lost some family. And so I was afraid to talk to my boss, talk to my coworkers about this. And when I finally did, I had some people at the university try to get me fired. They said there's no way that this guy should be working at a university. But because I understood how to defend my objective reality and explain the science in a way that they couldn't disprove, and also because I have an amazing boss he loves talking about it. He's not a flat earther, but we have conversations all the time about it. He loves to discuss it. So he stood behind me, and to this day, I still work at this university. Every Friday, I go into work with shirts I wear shirts like this. That, the heliocentric model is bullshit or whatever, and I do it because I love to instigate people, get them thinking. I'm not out there trying to convince somebody how it is. I'm trying to get people to just think for themselves. Stop regurgitating stuff that you've been told and think about it.
That's a great attitude, because that's it. The only thing for me is trying to invoke discussion with people, and I think again that's another huge study that's really interesting to me. Just as you touched on, like friends or apparent friends disowning, and you look at the psychology of that and you go, well, what does that present as? I mean, what's actually going on here that we don't have a tolerance to be able to discuss and listen to people who are offering up another point of view? I mean, why is it such a threat that, your own subjective processes are such a threat to these other people? They feel the need to disown or attack or whatever. It says a whole lot about the state of their psychology, their emotional processes, and their weakness, So there's so many avenues and layers of interest in this whole process for me that tells you a whole lot, about the workings of the human. And again, just as you say, if people are intolerant of a discussion of your interpretation or your experience of your reality, then there's a real problem there. You can see clearly that these people were never your friend. So were they only your friend because you represent, some stature, you make them look better, their stature rises because you have the right look, you have the right job, you have the right car, you have the blah blah. Oh, but now you're saying that stuff, so all of a sudden you can't be within my circle. I mean, it's so shallow, that it says a whole lot about them.
Yeah, it is. I mean, it is shallow. A lot of people like to live in the shallows because they feel safer, right? They're afraid to drown. Yeah. I've always been a deep swimmer, and I have no problem diving down deep, and that's what I like to do. I like to make people think about things that are uncomfortable. Yeah. But it comes back to fear, and so many people just live in fear, and it's easy for them to continue to live in fear if everyone around them is at the same level of fear, right? But if all of a sudden now you go in a different direction and you say, well, that fear is not real, but look at the world from a completely different perspective, that scares them more than the fear that the fake fear that they're currently living in. Yeah. So that's what pushes them, makes them push you away. It's because, oh my God, he's way too out there. Like, that's insane. And people like to, misery loves company, right?
Exactly.
Right?
But the reflection on that is also the fact that people like yourself, people like me, we don't go away. We still stand proud, we still stand firm, which again is a trigger for them to start kind of going, wait a minute, what's going on here? Because I think in their perception you're going to run away and hide in a corner or end up in some cave that you'll never be seen again. But here you are, you're still you're still going about your life, your duties day to day, and you're still prominent within their experience. So it must make them go, hang on now, something has to be looked at here. So
absolutely. And in a lot of cases, they look at people like us and they go, wow, you look like you're not afraid of anything. What's wrong with you? I get that question all the time. Like, how are you not freaking out about the things you're saying? And I'm like, honestly, I gave up on fear, man. I reached this point where I was like, it has no more control over me. I'm not going to let it have control.
Well, that's what I was just going to get to, because that's their problem. Because the biggest fear mechanism for them is because they're attached to what other people think of them. I can only speak for myself, and I'm going to make a guess at you. You don't have an attachment. You don't define yourself by how other people perceive you or what they think about you or whatever. That's the problem. Everybody is looking to each other to define each other. and that's the melting pot of madness as far as I'm concerned. Whereas I don't have an attachment to that, so I can stand up and say whatever I like without fear of ridicule, because it's not going to have any bearing on me, you know?
Yeah, no, absolutely. You stop caring what people think about you, and people think you've gone crazy, but really, they're just too afraid to do the same thing because they're relying on how many likes they got for the stupid picture of their breakfast that they just uploaded to their page or whatever. So to that, I say, delete all that stuff. Delete all of it. Delete your social media accounts, give up on that stuff, and just live in the real world. Start having real interactions with people. Go do street activism and talk to people you've never talked to, and walk by people on the street and look in their eyes and smile. You know how much, it's crazy. I walk around and people don't want to look at anybody because it's like they're too afraid to present their who they really are to somebody else. Yep. Walk around and look at people in the eyes and smile and say hi, and it's contagious. People are like, and when people see you doing that, they're like, well, I want to be like that guy, and just give them little bits of information that are going to make them question their reality. Open them up. Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, there's so many different aspects to the flat Earth, community. There's, people that want to focus on the strictly physical aspect, other people that are taking it on a religious tangent and going into spiritual realms and stuff. But really, this is a human experience. And, get rid of your ego. Get rid of it. Get rid of all this information that you've been told, and start making your own observations, thinking about things for yourself. It's a beautiful thing. Yeah.
Exactly. And that's it, just as you say, that's just my avenue. For me, I identified that it was much better to sharpen the arrows by removing some of the ambiguous aspects like religion and, fantasy and metaphysics and these types of things. Because, again, the globe earth and the mainstream science is presented as science and fact and rationale and reason and blah, blah. So for me, I have to approach that, from the point of truth, where it's people like myself that represent what they claim. So you have to play them at their own game, and so for me, I felt that it was more potent, particularly when you're dealing with like university students, to just, remove any aspects of metaphysical, beliefs and any of these things. But I understand why people pursue these avenues. That's just their bag. But for me, I advocate against that type of thing. I don't think it's necessary, particularly in the climate we're in right now. As I say, with this, push of scientism, that it has the answers to everything, when it's masquerades, walking about presenting itself as objective inquiry, when it's anything but, So I like to just attack it using its own language, its own tools,
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said earlier, most of these people walking around believing in this lie, this heliocentric model, they have no idea about it. They really don't understand it. They don't know anything. The people that know the most about the heliocentric model are flat earthers because they've done the research. They've gone out, whether it's watching thousands of hours of YouTube videos or reading books. I mean, some of the books I have here on my shelf are from the 1800s, and they're talking about the same thing. They're talking about the same conversation, and it's the same proofs. It's never changed. So, do your own research. Go out and do observations. Do level plane tests. Laser tests. Whatever it is. If you can get a weather balloon and send it up and observe it for yourself. Don't just sit there and expect people to tell you what it is, because then you're just repeating the same mistakes, right?
Exactly. And then people fall into these dichotomies, this circus of this team against that team, and that's what happens. People don't want to discern for themselves, so they just place faith in a representative, that then they look as a, represents them in a battling shoes, and they just sit as cheerleaders. Hey, my team scored a point.
Exactly. That's why you've got so many people that are addicted to, professional sports, and especially in the States with football teams, or American football teams, I should say, and basketball teams, and I mean, they get so invested in it, like they're the ones that are out there on the courts playing these games. No, they're not. But they'll literally go and fight somebody else and say, my team's going to kick your team. Come on, guys. You're wasting time, you're wasting money, you're wasting energy. You'd be doing something productive with yourself, with the world. It's all a big distraction. So yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned, I mean, a lot of people, they talk about, like you were saying earlier, the Illuminati or Freemasonry, and wanting to blame stuff on different groups, right? And I have firsthand experience in one of those groups. Before I became a flat earther, I became a Freemason out of curiosity, and I spent 9 years in the craft. I went all the way to almost to the top, 32nd degree. I became a worshipful master of the lodge. And after I became a flat earther, I started to look at what they were teaching in Freemasonry, and it confirms it. It's just like the Bible. It's like the old scriptures. They confirm that it's a flat earth. But when I tried to bring it up in lodge, as the worshipful master, I was told to shut up. And then I was told, I can't talk about this. And I was like, why not? Why can't I talk about this? We're actually teaching it here in the books. Why can't we talk about how the world is not a spinning ball? And they effectively kicked me out. And I was like, wow. So when people want to go online and say, oh, the Freemasons are responsible, well, maybe to some degree there's people at the top of the echelon, that they are Freemasons or they are Illuminati. They know the truth. But really...
that brings it full circle, because it's not an external source's responsibility for your own discernment. That's where people miss the point. And why this victim snowflake type attitude is being pushed, because people are constantly making themselves the victim. I don't have to think, I don't have to anything. I'm just a victim in this game between these factions, and I'm just a poor victim. That brings it right back for me. It's not about blaming a particular source. It's your responsibility for what you take on board, where you place your attention, what you buy into. These people are offering you products left, right and centre, regardless of whether they know the truth and present lies. That's up to them. Again, you define yourself by your walk. So you've got nobody to blame bar yourself. If you're influenced by the Freemasons or the Illuminati or whoever you want to blame, that's showing me that you're weak. Because it's up to you. That's the beauty of this whole topic. It lies in the hands of each individual, because science is exploration. It doesn't belong to anybody. It's about your inquiry into the objective reality. And then you come across people like us, you make a claim, you demonstrate it in a practical fashion, we have an understanding and we move on. If we don't have that, we're into the realms of language and sophistry and debates and mental concepts, and it's not going to get you anywhere,
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, anyways, I really appreciate that you are on your channel. I mean, I see your videos going up all the time, and this is my first time calling in, so I appreciate you taking the time to let me call in and talk, and I really enjoy having these kind of conversations. I'm trying to do some content of my own and get people involved. All I want to do is just get people talking, get them thinking for themselves, and whether it's the shape of the world or whether it's philosophical grounds, whatever it is that interests you, find an interest, find something that piques your curiosity, and start picking up stones and looking underneath things that you thought were just always there and were fact. Well, go ahead and prove it. And if you prove that it's right, then you cement it in your mind that that's your objective reality. Like you've done the research, but don't just sit there and accept what somebody's told you because you put your trust in them. You put your trust in politicians to make decisions for you. Come on, if you want to be involved, get involved. Have a government more like Switzerland, a direct democracy where everybody votes on every level of government. Don't just represent politicians to make decisions for you, because they're going to do whatever they want. And then people want to sit there and complain. Well, do something about it.
Exactly, man. Yeah. Exactly. Well said. Yeah, spot on.
All right, well, appreciate the call. Hope we can connect again at some point here and have another chat.
Anytime, mate. Anytime at all. Pleasure.
All right, have a great day.
You too, bud. Take it easy. Right. So I'll go back and I'll check the emails if anybody else has requested. How are we getting on in the chat box? See, that's it, you know, part of the psychology of people. It's, you know, you see that continually. He said he was going to make content. I'm not sure if he has any content. Dan, I don't know if you're there in the chat. If you've got a channel, you can just let people know through the chat box there what your channel name is. But you know, that whole aspect, I've touched on it before, obviously, and you know, many people know that, you know, people will place themselves as a victim and blame everybody else, but take responsibility for their own discernment. It's a bizarre state to be in. That allows, you know, predatory types, you know, to come in and utilise your apathy for their benefit. And that's exactly what we see in the systems that we have in play. So is that at Tech Talks? Let's see. Channel. Is that you? No, Shug, that professor, whatever his name is, Simon, he never contacted us. And again, you get these people coming online saying they want to understand, they want to have discussions, yada yada, and then you offer yourself up and they go quiet. Obviously, I was not the target. I suspect we will see cherry picking of what he wants to focus on. Oh, it's a toughie, Thomas McBrearty, toughie. I see Wilder come in a bit heavier, so it's anybody's game, but you know, we can't underestimate Big Fury and his boxing ability. So it could go either way. If he's on his game and he bobs and weaves like he did the last time, he could go the distance, take it on points, but I'll not be setting up for it. I'm hoping that the ring walk will be running about 5 AM your time, so I might set my alarm and get up for it. That's my indulgence. Two guys want to get in and punch fuck at each other, then I don't buy into that 500 years ago shite, Bates. I really don't. I've been saying that for a long time. You know, for me, this globe thing only really took proper hold when visual technology started to advance. Because that's the only way to really push it. How's the weather, Jack? Are you trying to be funny? Can you not hear the hailstones hitting off the shed right now? I got up this morning at the back of 6 and run about 6:45. It started to get really bright, looked lovely. Then by 7:15 it went dark again, like it was fucking midnight. And it's been like that ever since. Yeah, that's it. He needs to watch the stitches, Sean. Hey, Emerald Rider, try to gaslight me. Oh, loads of bizarre questions beyond belief. They're just at that age, I say, Xander's kind of entering into the age of reason now. So he's quite clever. Trying to think, there was some visual thing that I asked him the other day. And I says, why do you think it looks like that? And he said, it's just because of the angle, the way I'm looking at it. I thought, fucking brilliant. Your wee mind is working perfectly. I can't remember exactly what it was. When mine's dead, could you tell Timid's flicks why moving upwards works the same way to gravity, same effect? Well, you know, gravity is a nonsense because obviously we've highlighted it suggests it's a pulling force. Like it interacts with objects somehow. And we know the mechanisms of motion requires a pressure, once thing pressing on some other thing. That is what force is. How much something presses on something else. So, you know, when you look at it, if you play a mental game, you know, of we're in a 3D void of nothingness and we place an object in it, forget my hand is there. You know, how does that object has mass, has volume, it has a density to it, right? But it has no weight, it has no direction. How then in this mental place, three-dimensional void of nothingness, are you ever going to give an object direction and weight? You need something to come into contact with it. So wherever you come into contact denotes a reference frame of direction. So if we go from that point, there's your reference point of down. Now we have a direction. Now this object of mass, density, volume has weight because it has something to resist. And depending on how fast you're going is going to denote how much weight there is. It just goes by how much pressure is applied at what rate. Simple. Or you need to invoke some sort of flow. You know, I seen Good Tims for All. He was showing the electrical aspect. He's got the Van de Graaff machine. And he's got two plates. And he puts the charge through it, he reversed the plates, so he had like a piece of paper or polystyrene, and the polystyrene moved to the top plate because that was the direction of flow, right? So you can see in a situation like that, you can have a direction of flow, but my question to that was, does that happen with every, you know, type of matter? You know, wood, metal, you know, different density, different structure of matter. And you would need bigger apparatus, better apparatus to demonstrate that. But again, that kind of thing works. I'm not saying that's exactly what's going on, but under the laws of motion right now, you know, that you know, motion. Without motion, nothing happens anyway. You need something to move, or everything's just still. You don't have anything. So you need motion. Motion for me is fundamental to this experience. So what is it that's moving? It's just questions. As I say, going by the heliocentric model, three-dimensional voids of nothingness, the only way for an object to have direction and weight is for something moving to come into contact with it, press against it, and continue to do so. So you've always got a reference point of down, and you will have weight because you have resistance. Without that motion, you've got nothing. So the heliocentric model's tripped itself up by spinning and wobbling and gyrating and then having to invoke pulley forces. But again, we go to the laws of motion, we go to practical reality. Pull does not exist as a mechanical function to create motion of anything. It's just a descriptor of direction. So bringing something closer to you, pulled it towards you. The mechanics of that interaction between you and the object is applying a pressure to it to put it into motion. Simple. No, you know, weight requires acceleration. You can adjust, you can fuck with weight in the reference frame. So, you know, like the elevator situation, you can go on an elevator when you press the up button. As it starts to move, accelerate, you'll get an increase in weight. If you put an object on a scale and you press the button, if you observe the scale, the weight will increase briefly, and then it reaches uniform motion and it stays the same. But you're talking about that within the reference frame. But the reference frame, the main reference frame in that mental, you know, thought experiment doesn't have to continuously accelerate, because it had no direction. It had nothing in the first place. This just comes in uniformly at the same rate and just continues at the same rate, and it gives you a constant direction and a constant weight. If that was continually accelerating, you would get an increase in weight continually, just like G-force here. In order to keep that pushback in an accelerating car, you have to keep the acceleration going up and up so that you keep feeling that force. But that's only because you're overcoming the main reference frame. But if you're talking about the reference frame being the main reference frame, then it doesn't need to keep accelerating. It can just move uniformly. As long as it's in constant motion, you're going to get the same resistance. It's not about going up. It's not about going up. That's just to us within the reference frame. If you're out with the reference frame, it could be going that way and pushing you around in an orbit, going around in a big circle, or up and down, or whatever, going that way. I mean, it doesn't matter. The point is that you within the reference frame, you just know your direction of down. Again, I'm not certain that's what's actually happening, but it conforms with, what we understand about reality and how things actually function. What did I just say, Chip City? That's because you're talking within the reference frame. So within the reference frame, in order to overcome these things and to feel that pushback on the seat, you need to keep increasing the acceleration. That's a total different situation. The mechanisms of the camera, to extend the lens and whatever else, will be utilising levers. Again, motion, levers, pressing on other levers to make something happen. Yeah, it could be moving at a constant rate. Doesn't have to continually accelerate. People talk about it would have to continually accelerate because they're talking within the reference frame. Now, to overcome that, you have to constantly accelerate more and more and more to feel that pushback, because this is just constantly coming against you. But that's within the reference frame. We're talking about the reference frame as a whole in the thought experiment of three-dimensional void. How do you get direction? How do you get weight? You don't, unless you have something moving that comes into contact with it and presses against it. Now, pulling is just a descriptor of direction. Like when you open a door inwards, you'll say you pulled the door. But again, the mechanism of the motion being created shows you that you're having to apply the pressure to the inside of the handle. Right, let me just check something here. No worries, Dan. Cheers for coming on, mate. See, any time at all. There's no other requests, so it's just the chat box for a couple of minutes. See what's happening. Yeah. And that's why I brought that up about the push-pull thing, because it's detrimental to the heliocentric globe nonsense. Because to suggest that one object can affect the other object, bringing it towards itself without any interaction between, is absolutely, totally and utterly absurd. Total gibberish fantasy nonsense. Total and utter. So it destroys their whole idiocy. Warping and bending your stuff seeds and all that. That's why they attacked it. And they continue to attack it. If I made another video talking about push and pull and the nonsense of gravity, they'll attack it en masse. Go and look at the videos that I've done on it. Thousands of fucking idiotic word salads over and over again. Just trying to deflect from the facts that they cannot escape from. And what I'm saying to you, you can test for yourself. You go and you show me motion being created by a pulling force. It does not exist. It's pressure variance, how much pressure something's applying to something else in order to put it into motion. It's fucking simple. Space-time's nonsense is mathematical fucking conceptual jargon of imaginative nonsense. But they had to go there because they need a flow of some kind, because they know it's fucking ridiculous. Well, gravity pulls stuffs, so they come up with this rubbish about fucking warping space-time and all that. But even at that, space-time, which is not a thing, it's not a substance, would have to be flown in every direction to a central point. Then where does it go? Fucking nowhere. Exactly, no story now. People just, if you hear it here, go, as I say, and apply it. Figure it out for yourself. Move stuff. Look at motion. Look at machinery. Machines, everything that we understand and we know comes down to two things. An inclined planes and levers. That's machinery. Everything's based on that. It's something pressing on something else in order to achieve motion. I'm not lying, not making it up. Exactly, Kung Fu Mantis, comets of dragging a vacuum. Oh, look at the comet with its big tail. Why is there a tail? Drag. What is it? Friction? Friction against nothing? Eh? Exactly, Keith Anthony. Every time. Cheers, Thomas. That's it, you know, moon pulling. That's the absurdity again for anybody that doesn't know. If you're new to this and you're figuring it out, you've got two objects, and you need one object to make the other object move. What are you going to need? What's required? Right? This somehow needs to either attach itself to this one, and using levers or inclined planes, wind it in and apply pressure to make it come, or it has to somehow get something round the other side of this to apply the pressure here in order to bring it towards itself. You can't just say nothing in between and magically things move towards each other. It's fucking nonsense. Total and utter mathematical jobby. Reality will show you. If you take the time. The Earth is absolutely stationary. I've not established that. This didn't all begin in 2015, Chip City. You're missing the point. This wave on YouTube's since about 2014. There's people talking about it even before that. You had radio DJ hosts, a guy called Tommy Boyd, or Tommy Boyd, aye. You know, he was talking about it on, you know, British radio. You know, this has been getting spoke about for, you know, however long. It's not just YouTube's. As Dan was saying about his books from 100 years ago, you know, people have always been talking about this. I say this globe concept only really got proper traction when the aid of visual technology. I think it's going on with magnetism. I really don't know. But it's an influence, it's something flowing, something moving, which interacts with, you know, physicality and achieves motion. But you can look at Eric Laithwaite, he shows you it with a rack and pinion, just to show you the example. You've got inclined planes, levers, you know, so you've got a cog mechanism and you've got a ratchet mechanism. And he shows you it analogly, so that, you know, the tooth interacts with the other tooth of the cog and you can see the motion, one lever pressing on another lever. Then he removes it and he shows you it with a row of magnets, and he does the same and you get the same motion. So whatever's happening with the magnet is having an interaction with physical substance, applying some sort of pressure or varying pressure, which creates the motion. The wheel turns just the same. So this is a thing, you know, if we demonstrate that and we understand in every practical example of how motion is created, then how do you get to invoke pullingness of magic when we talk about magnetism? This is just globe fucking bollocks, because they need magical, imaginative ways of making stuff move and have direction. It's fundamental to their religious fucking concept. And as I've pointed out, if you can show demonstrably that that aspect is total bunkum, then it falls apart. Pullingness. A vacuum cleaner creates that's what's happening. That spin creates a low pressure, so the surrounding pressure rushes in. So whatever gets caught up, the particulates are being pushed by the inrushing higher pressure, which presses on it and pushes it into the bag or the chamber, whatever you like. Good Tony Dixon. They certainly do need the pull and attract nonsense. It's fundamental to their fucking whole jobby. Where did I study? Life. Study life, James Coleman. It certainly is Chip City. Yeah, high level Robert. Yeah. Yes, practical lived life, James Coleman. I don't know, you angling to try and appeal to some fucking gibberish of an authority or PhD or some paperwork or something. That's no a refutation of what I'm stating here. Because what I'm stating is fact, demonstrable fact. So, whatever. Yes, James Coleman, I did experiments, demonstrations. Motion requires a pressure, force. One thing pressing on another thing in order to achieve motion. If you deny it, offer me up some other aspect that I can demonstrate where that's not the case. I know that you cannot, and that you're just playing silly wee games trying to avoid the facts because it destroys your faulty religious worldview. Sorry, but I'm no sorry. Get it right up you. How does sunrise happen? Whatever, here we go. Boring. Yeah. Let's look at your assumptions of what this luminary actually is, shall we, James? Because obviously you think that you've got a solid assumption when you've got diddly squat, sonny boy. I'm not even going to entertain you. You're too thick. It's so fucking illogical, so dumb. These fucking blind cult zealots, fanatics, they care not about the facts that are presented to them. They just keep going on and on and on. Oh, but I want this to be true, so I'm just going to keep rambling like a fucking loony, going around in circles, making assumptions about stuff that I don't even know. Good on you, James. Very bright. Special snowflake. Doing your cult proud. Right, I'm Offski Pops, people. It's been a pleasure. Thank you very much. I shall see you all very, very shortly. Take care of yourselves and